Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. We are 69 days out from the presidential election. And if there's one thing we know about Donald Trump, no matter where we are in the campaign, no matter what the polls are up and down, is that he is going to be exactly who he is all the time, every day, no matter what. And nothing ever really seems to stick to him politically, at least not enough. He was just indicted all over again by another federal grand jury. He is celebrating an endorsement from a suspected whale decapitator. More on that later if that's confusing you. But the scandal that does have Trump and his people scrambling for cover today has to do with the bizarre photo op the former president did on Monday at Arlington National Cemetery, in which he grinned and gave the camera a thumbs up over the grave of a Marine killed in Afghanistan. The appearance was off-putting enough by itself, but then yesterday, NPR reported that Trump campaign staff at Arlington had actually gotten into an altercation with a worker at the cemetery over their filming among the graves of the fallen. The Trump campaign's top spokesman downplayed the incident in a statement to NBC News with a sort of typically priggish, mean-spirited spin, saying, for whatever reason, an unnamed individual clearly suffering from a mental health episode decided to physically block members of President Trump's team during a very solemn ceremony. But of course, the worker had every reason, right? Arlington National Cemetery suggested as much, telling NBC News a report had been filed in the incident and adding in a statement, federal law prohibits political campaign or election-related activities within Army National Military cemeteries to include photographers, content creators, or any other persons attending for purposes or in direct support of a partisan political candidate's campaign. Arlington National Cemetery reinforced and widely shared this law and its prohibitions with all participants. Trump's co-campaign manager, Chris LaCivita, told NBC News that Trump went to the cemetery to honor Gold Star families, not film a political campaign ad. He never do that. And J.D. Vance today tried to play it off as some kind of media creative furor.
You're acting like Donald Trump filmed a TV commercial at a gravesite. He was there providing emotional support to a lot of brave Americans who lost loved ones they never should have lost, and there happened to be a camera there.
Oh, there happened to be a camera there? How stupid do you think we are? He was just called to provide emotional support, a thing he does all the time away from the cameras. And oh, look at that, a camera. This was the video Trump posted, of course, to his social media that day.
We lost 13 great people. What a horrible day it was. We didn't lose one person in 18 months. And then they took over that disaster, the leaving of Afghanistan.
That's a campaign ad filmed at Arlington, obviously. Also, we didn't lose one person in 18 months. Dozens of U.S. service members died in action under Donald Trump. That's been erased. No ceremony for them, no ad, certainly. So that's Trump going to military cemetery to film a video reminding viewers of the U.S. deaths during the withdrawal from Afghanistan, blaming his successor for them, of course, without mentioning that Trump tied Joe Biden's hands by agreeing to a withdrawal timeline set by the Taliban. But not a political ad, right? The cameraman happened to be there, as J.D. Vance said. Thing is, Trump wasn't even the only politician capitalizing off that Arlington visit. He was accompanied by Republican Utah Governor Spencer Cox, a guy you say you never vote for Trump until, of course, he endorsed him, who then used photos of the event to, get this, solicit donations in a campaign email. A violation of federal law as well, and something the governor now says was a mistake, a thing he'll say about voting for Trump in a few months, probably. Trump's team, however, is, of course, because they're Trump and his team, not admitting any mistakes. Instead, they've got J.D. Vance, the member of the Republican ticket with military experience, responding on the campaign trail.
Could you tell us more about the altercation that happened at the Arlington Cemetery?
Now, it is amazing to me that you have apparently somebody at Arlington Cemetery, some staff member, had a little disagreement with somebody, and the media has turned this into a national news story. The families of these poor people who had their loved ones die 3 years ago at Abbey Road, Abbey Gate, those 13 Americans, a lot of them were there with the president. They invited him to be there and to support them. That's not an insult to the memories of their loved ones. They wanted Donald Trump there, and thank God that we have a president who stands with our veterans instead of one who runs away from them.
Okay, this is important, honestly, on this. It is true, Trump was invited. He was invited by some of those family members who Trump has been talking to, right? But this is a really important point. He was not invited by all the families of all the 400,000 veterans and dependents that are buried at Arlington, who did not and cannot consent to be used as props and a backdrop by a few other bereaved families for this individual. That's why the prohibition exists. It's a complete prohibition. It doesn't matter if he was invited. And beyond Vance disparaging someone who works at Arlington National Cemetery for enforcing the rules, is Donald Trump really a president who stands with our veterans instead of one who runs away from them? Really? Donald, I don't like losers. I like people that weren't captured. Trump, the Donald Trump who spent so much of his first presidential campaign attacking the parents. Do you remember this one of an American Army officer who died in Iraq in 2004? The Donald Trump who, as president, fumbled the name of a fallen soldier in a condolence call to his widow, then bickered with her and then knocked her in interviews. The Donald Trump who, according to his chief of staff, his own chief of staff, a retired four-star Marine general, refused to pay his respects at a veterans cemetery in Europe, saying, "Why should I go to that cemetery? It's filled with losers." And who, on that same trip, called the more than 1,800 Marines who died at Belleau Wood suckers for getting killed? Or was it the Donald Trump who reportedly hated being filmed or photographed with wounded veterans? At Army General Mark Milley's welcoming ceremony as chairman of the Joint Chiefs in 2019, the general had chosen a combat-wounded soldier, Luis Avila, to sing God Bless America at the ceremony. You can see Avila there in the wheelchair. Milley said afterward the president told him, "Why do you bring people like that here? No one wants to see that, the wounded." And if you think, well, all that's in the past, it was just less than 2 weeks ago when Donald Trump used war-wearied American service members as a kind of punchline about how rough they all look in order to talk up one of his biggest political donors.
I have to say, Miriam, I watched Sheldon sitting so proud in the White House when we gave Miriam the Presidential Medal of Freedom. That's the highest award you can get as a civilian. It's the equivalent of the Congressional Medal of Honor, but civilian version. It's actually much better because everyone gets the Congressional Medal of Honor. That's soldiers. They're either in very bad shape because they've been hit so many times by bullets or they're dead. She gets it, and she's a healthy, beautiful woman. It's very...
See, they don't have any of those ugly scars or wounds or bullet marks. She's beautiful, right? Isn't that awesome? Isn't that the highest that one could hope for? You could be forgiven for looking at all this and thinking that Trump only has respect for the most revered American institutions, the military, the justice system, free elections, when they're working for him.